I stood there in the middle of an empty garden pavilion, surrounded by perfectly arranged tables, hand-lettered name cards, and catered dishes still warm in their trays. I checked the time again. 11:00 a.m. Sharp, just like I'd told everyone. The breeze stirred the string lights I'd hung the night before, and the scent of lemon herb chicken filled the air, but the only thing missing was my entire family. I called my mom. No answer. I texted my brother Jason, my sister-in-law, even my younger brother Ethan. Nothing. At 11:27, I finally got a call. It was my mom. She sounded almost amused. "Oh, honey. We decided to move the reunion to Jason's house. It's closer for everyone, and you know how lovely his new pool area is. I brought you some leftovers, though." I blinked, stunned. "You what, I'm on my way to drop them off now? Don't worry. You won't miss out completely." Leftovers. From the family reunion I had planned, paid for, coordinated down to the last detail. As I stood there, $200 out of pocket, 3 months of planning behind me, and not a single person from my family in sight, I felt something inside me shift. Something quiet but final. For the first time in my life, I wasn't just hurt or disappointed. I was done. But before I tell you how that one day changed everything, my family, my role within it, and most importantly, myself, let me take you back a bit. Because the truth is, this wasn't just about one abandoned event. It was about a lifetime of being the one who always gave and was never seen. Growing up in the Miller household meant learning to excel at being overlooked. I was the middle child, the reliable one, sandwiched between Jason, the shining star of the family, and Ethan, the adorable baby who could do no wrong. I learned early on that being dependable didn't mean being seen. It meant being expected. Jason was 4 years older than me. Captain of the football team, straight A's, class president, you name it. Every time he walked into a room, my parents lit up like someone had flipped a switch. When he got his driver's license, Dad gave him his old car without a second thought. When he got accepted into an out-of-state university, Mom cried tears of joy and baked a 3-tier cake. I still remember standing beside her in the kitchen, helping her decorate it, knowing there wouldn't be one for me when my time came. Ethan, 5 years younger than me, was everyone's favorite surprise blessing. Cute, mischievous, full of energy. Even when he drew on the walls or broke Dad's tablet, it was brushed off with a fond chuckle. "He's just a kid," Mom would say, ruffling his hair. "Don't be so serious." Audrey, serious. That was my label. I was the one who helped Jason proofread his college essays, the one who babysat Ethan so Mom and Dad could go on date nights, the one who learned to cook when Mom went back to work part-time. I never complained. I wanted to help. I believed that if I worked hard enough, stayed responsible enough, they'd notice. They didn't. By the time I was 16, I had my own after-school job at the local bookstore. I was saving for college, because deep down I knew I wouldn't get much help. Jason had cleaned out most of the college fund, and what was left, Mom told me gently, would probably go to Ethan since he's still so young and will need it more. It stung, but I smiled and nodded like always. When I got my acceptance letter to a top state university, I showed it to my parents with trembling hands. Mom glanced at it and said, "Wow, that's great. What are you going to do about tuition? No celebration, no cake, just logistics." So I worked 3 part-time jobs during college coffee shop, campus library, weekend babysitting. I graduated with honors and 0 support. Jason, meanwhile, had coasted through under Mom and Dad's financial wing, and Ethan, by then a teenager, had a custom gaming PC in his room and private math tutoring. Still, I never confronted them. I told myself family dynamics were complicated, that they loved us all equally in their own way, that maybe being the strong one was my role. Maybe that was how I contributed. After college, I landed a position at a mid-sized investment firm. I worked hard, climbed steadily and earned my certification as a financial planner by 27. A year later, I bought my first condo. No help, just me, my savings, and a budget spreadsheet. When I told my family during Thanksgiving that year, Jason barely looked up from carving the turkey. "You always were good with numbers," he said. Ethan asked if I had a guest room he could crash in for fun weekends in the city. Mom's response: "Oh, honey, I hope you didn't overextend yourself with the mortgage." "You should have talked to your father before signing anything." I wanted to scream. Instead, I just sipped my wine and smiled tightly. Holidays became harder after that. I was always expected to bring more food, more gifts, more time. Jason would show up late with store-bought cookies and get praised for helping. Ethan would forget to RSVP and still be welcomed with open arms. I was usually the one hosting, coordinating, funding, and invisible. One Christmas, I spent over $2,000 on gifts, decorations, catering, and entertainment for a family gathering at my place. Jason's kids broke a lamp and spilled grape juice on my new rug. Ethan brought a date who forgot to bring a dish. At the end of the night, no one helped clean up. As they left, Mom gave me a peck on the cheek and said, "Thanks for putting this together. You've always been our little organizer. Our little organizer." That title followed me everywhere. It wasn't praise. It was a job assignment, an unpaid one. If anything needed doing birthday, funeral, holiday, moving day, I was the first call. Not because they trusted me emotionally, but because they knew I'd get it done. And I always did, until recently, when it started to wear thin. The moment that truly cracked something open in me came 6 months before the infamous family reunion. It was Dad's 70th birthday. I organized a surprise party at his favorite steakhouse, reserved the private dining room, prepaid the catering, even arranged for a slideshow of old photos to play during dessert. Jason showed up late. Ethan forgot to bring the custom cake I'd asked him to pick up, and Mom kept reminding me to stay under budget at the end of the evening. As everyone clapped for Dad's speech, he looked at Jason and said, "I'm proud of the man you've become, son." He hugged Ethan and joked about how we'd keep him young. Then he turned to me. "And Audrey, thanks for the slides. Very organized. Very organized." I nodded, numb. Leah, my best friend, who had come along as moral support, grabbed my hand under the table and whispered, "You know they treat you like a wedding planner, right? Not a daughter?" I laughed, but it wasn't funny. That night, I went home and looked through my bank app. I tallied up what I'd spent on just the past year's worth of family obligations. It was over $11,000, and that was before I decided to plan the family reunion. Part 2, the reunion that was supposed to fix everything. I don't know exactly what I was hoping to fix with the reunion. Maybe I thought that if I just created the perfect environment, something would shift, that my family would look around and finally see me not just the one with the clipboard, the spreadsheets, and the budget plans, but me. Audrey, the person who still desperately wanted to belong. It started, like most Miller family events, with a group text. "Let's start planning this year's reunion." Mom's message chirped into the family chat on a rainy Thursday afternoon in March. Jason chimed in 2 minutes later. "Audrey should take the lead again. She's got the skills." Ethan replied with a laughing emoji. "Yeah, she probably already has a plan." I stared at the screen, debating whether to say no. Last year's Thanksgiving dinner, which I hosted and paid for, had cost me nearly $1,800 and ended with Mom suggesting I try a simpler menu next time. But then I thought about Grandma Eleanor before she passed away. Grandma made a point to bring everyone together once a year for a proper family reunion, potluck style, in her backyard. Folding chairs and lemon bars, cousins everywhere. When she died, I took it upon myself to keep the tradition alive. No one asked me to. No one else offered. So, as usual, I typed the words that sealed my fate. Sure, I'll coordinate. Immediately, I followed it up with something I'd never dared to before, but this time, let's split the costs evenly between the adults. I'll keep track of everything so it's fair. The chat went silent. 3 hours later, Mom replied, "Let's not worry about that just yet. First, we need to pick a venue." That later never came. In the weeks that followed, I sent several gentle nudges about contributions. Jason ghosted. Ethan replied with vague noncommittals like, "I'll pitch in where I can." Mom changed the subject every single time. Meanwhile, I began researching venues. I created a spreadsheet color-coded by preferences, costs, and capacity, and shared it with the group. Grace, Jason's wife, said she wanted somewhere with nice natural light for family photos. Ethan wanted a space with activities for his 3 boys. Dad wanted somewhere with a fishing pond, if possible. Mom asked that I find a place where her gardening club friends could drop by without it being weird. After days of site visits and phone calls, I found Willow Creek Garden Resort, a hidden gem with manicured lawns, a duck pond, a small fishing dock, shaded picnic areas, and indoor space in case of rain. It was absolutely perfect. When I shared pictures in the group chat, everyone gushed. "Looks amazing," said Jason. "So cute," Grace added, followed by a series of heart-eyed emojis. "The kids will love it," Ethan replied. Mom wrote, "Your grandmother would have adored this place." No one asked how much it cost. So I brought it up. "Just FYI, the venue is $3,000 for the day. I'm happy to handle booking and logistics, but we'll need to split that cost. Let me know what each of you can contribute." And like clockwork, the conversation shifted. Grace suddenly asked about catering. Ethan mentioned that his kids had become picky eaters. Mom requested lemon chicken from a specific restaurant across town. Jason wanted beer and a gluten-free dessert option because Grace's new diet didn't allow sugar this month. Not a single person acknowledged my comment about money. I should have walked away then. Instead, I dug in deeper. I took a day off work to visit the venue and meet with the manager, who complimented my attention to detail. I coordinated with vendors, tested sample menus, made custom place cards with family photos. I even commissioned a local baker to make a cake with Miller Family Reunion 2023 in elegant blue frosting. My nights became a blur of RSVPs, spreadsheet tabs, and online orders for decorations and party favors. Every cent went on my credit card. 1 week before the reunion, I sent out a final message. "Everything's booked and confirmed for next Saturday at Willow Creek. Venue is paid. Catering scheduled. Please arrive at 11:00 a.m. sharp. Final cost breakdown is attached, totals $3,274.56. Any contribution would be greatly appreciated." Mom sent a heart emoji. Jason replied, "We're excited." Ethan didn't respond at all. Dad called that night. "The venue looks beautiful, sweetheart," he said after a pause. "Your mother showed me the pictures. We're really looking forward to it." "Thanks, Dad," I said carefully. I did mention the costs in the message. "Oh, right. Well, you know how things are. Jason just had to replace a tire, and Ethan's hours got cut at the store. But you've always been good at managing. You're such a planner. We're lucky to have you." I wanted to say, "I'm not lucky to have any of you," but I didn't. Instead, I told myself that maybe this time would be different, that they would show up, that all the effort, all the money, all the quiet sacrifices would finally be recognized. The night before the reunion, I stayed up until nearly 200 a.m., assembling party favors, little jars of homemade lemon sugar scrub for the women and toy sets for the kids, each tagged with their names. I made a photo slideshow set to Grandma Eleanor's favorite Sinatra songs. I triple-checked the seating chart. I printed labels for each catered dish. Everything was ready. At 6:00 a.m. the next morning, I woke up to the alarm I had set with eager anticipation. Despite running on less than 4 hours of sleep, I felt a spark of hope, a quiet, flickering flame. I dressed in a soft sky blue summer dress that Grandma would have loved, picked up the catering on time, drove carefully to the venue, unloaded everything with help from the kind staff. By 10:30, the pavilion looked magical. Food was warm, tables were set, music playing softly in the background. I sent a cheerful message to the family group chat. "Everything is ready, can't wait to see you all soon." No one replied. I told myself they were driving. At 11:00, I sat down at the head table and waited. At 11:15, the photographer arrived and began capturing shots of the setup. At 11:30, the place was still silent, except for birdsong and the low hum of disappointment in my chest. At noon, Mom finally called, and with one laugh and one careless sentence, "We moved it to Jason's place. Didn't anyone tell you?" My family severed something that had already been hanging by a thread. Maybe it was foolish optimism. Or maybe just the exhausted persistence of someone still hoping to be seen. Either way, when Mom sent the group message about planning this year's family reunion, I volunteered again. Well, I didn't so much volunteer as get voluntold. "Let's start planning this year's reunion," she texted, complete with 3 sun emojis and a gif of clinking wine glasses. Jason replied almost immediately, "Audrey's great at this stuff. She's got it covered." Grace added, "Honestly, you're the only one who knows how to pull this off right." And Ethan, ever the echo, sent a thumbs up and said, "Yep. You got this, sis." I stared at my phone for a while before typing my response. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I wanted to say no, I should have said no, but then I thought of Grandma Eleanor. Before she passed away, Grandma was the glue that kept the family from scattering like autumn leaves. Her reunions were simple, full of lemonade, paper plates, and way too much potato salad. But they were sacred. Even Jason would show up early back then. And for that one weekend each year, we were just a family. Not favorites, not forgotten, just together. When she died, no one stepped up to continue the tradition, so I did. I was 26 the first year I hosted it. I booked a local lodge, arranged the catering, printed a photo board of Grandma's life. I even led the prayer. Everyone said it was beautiful and then disappeared before cleanup. Now, years later, I was still the one holding the pieces, so I sighed and typed, "Okay, I'll coordinate, but I'd like us to split the costs this time. We're all adults." The chat went quiet. Very quiet. 3 hours later, Mom finally replied, "Let's figure that out later. First, let's decide on a venue." I should have seen it then. But I wanted to believe that later would come. That this year, things would be different. I still hadn't learned that later in my family usually meant never. Over the next few weeks, I brought it up again carefully, gently, the way you might approach a skittish animal. I've been researching venues. Prices range from $1,500 to $3,000. I'm happy to handle the bookings, but I need to know what everyone can contribute. Silence. A day later, Grace replied, "Money's a bit tight right now. Maybe I can help in other ways." This, coming from the woman who had just posted about a luxury spa day on Instagram. Ethan sent a vague, "Yeah, I'll chip in where I can," which in Ethan speak meant he would not. Still, I pressed on. I created a spreadsheet with potential venues, sorted by cost, amenities, and distance. I color-coded the ones that matched Mom's gardening preferences, Jason's grill obsession, and activities for Ethan's 3 boys. I even factored in lighting for Grace's family photos. Eventually, I landed on Willow Creek Garden Resort, a beautiful estate tucked beside a lake with flowering gardens, shaded picnic areas, and a covered pavilion in case of rain. There was even a tiny fishing dock for Dad. It was everything. I toured it one Friday afternoon after work, snapping photos of the grounds and asking the venue manager questions about parking, seating, and accessibility. When I posted the pictures in the group chat, the reactions came fast. "This looks amazing," Grace gushed. "Exactly what I pictured." Mom said, "The kids will love the pond," Ethan added. Jason simply wrote, "Perfect?" No one asked what it cost, so I brought it up again. "It's $3,000 for the day, not including food or extras. Can we each contribute our share? That would be around $500 per adult couple." Crickets. Then Grace asked what food options we were considering. Ethan said his kids had texture issues and wouldn't eat anything green or too soft. Mom requested lemon chicken from a very specific caterer across town. Jason said he and Grace were now gluten-free and dairy light, and also avoiding anything processed. I watched in disbelief as the topic of money disappeared, replaced by a laundry list of personal preferences and new dietary restrictions. Still, I carried on. I took another day off to visit the venue manager, Emma, and finalize the contract. She was impressed by my planning. "Most families argue over every little thing," she said, "but you seem to have it all together." If only she knew. Over the next month, I coordinated everything: catering, decorations, seating charts. I designed customized name cards for each guest with a small photo and quote from Grandma Eleanor underneath. I ordered centerpieces to match Mom's favorite flowers. I hired a local photographer to document the event and created personalized party favors. Every decision, every detail, every dollar, it all came from me. And no one even noticed. A week before the event, I sent one final message to the group. "Hi, everyone. Everything is confirmed for Saturday at Willow Creek Garden Resort. Venue is reserved from 10:00 a.m. to 6:00 p.m. I've covered all deposits and costs so far, currently at $3,274,56. Would really appreciate if we could split the costs. Let me know what you're able to contribute." Mom reacted with a heart emoji. Jason said, "Looking forward to it?" Ethan didn't respond at all. Dad called that evening. "The pictures look great. Sweetheart, you've outdone yourself again." "Thanks, Dad," I said carefully, "but I really need help with the cost. I've fronted everything. Well, you know how it is. Jason just had to buy new tires, and Ethan's hours got cut at the store. But we're all very grateful you're handling this." He changed the subject right after, "like always, that night." I stared at the spreadsheet on my laptop, neat rows of dates, vendors, totals, and thought about how much of myself I had poured into this one day. Not just my money, but my time, my effort, my heart. I told myself that it would all be worth it. That when they arrived and saw everything I'd done, they'd know. They'd finally see me. I went to bed smiling, despite the exhaustion. I had no idea that every confirmation, every message, every promise was a lie, and that the next morning, I'd be setting up alone, for a party no one intended to attend. The morning of the reunion, I woke up before my alarm. It was one of those mornings where everything felt a little brighter, a little more possible. I felt a flutter of hope in my chest, like maybe this would be the year something clicked, that they'd arrive, see all the effort I'd put in, and something in their faces would change recognition, perhaps gratitude, maybe even love. I showered, dressed in the pale sky blue sundress I'd bought weeks ago, Grandma Eleanor's favorite color. I pinned her old brooch to the neckline, the one she gave me the year before she passed. It felt like she was with me. By 7:00 a.m., I was on the road, my car packed with decorations, place cards, photo boards, and party favors. I stopped by Angelo's Catering at 7:45, and the staff helped me load trays of food into the back of my car: Mom's lemon chicken, Dad's ribeye steaks, Grace's gluten-free pasta, Ethan's kids' chicken tenders and mac and cheese. "Big event today?" Angelo asked, handing me the final invoice. "Family reunion," I said with a smile, swiping my credit card for $845,067. They're lucky to have someone like you organizing all this," he said kindly. I nodded, but something about his words caught in my throat. By 8:30, I arrived at Willow Creek Garden Resort. Emma, the venue manager, greeted me warmly and helped unload everything. The place looked even more beautiful than I remembered. The gardens were in full bloom, the pond glistened under the morning sun, and the staff had arranged the pavilion exactly as I'd requested, long tables overlooking the water, shaded by white umbrellas. A soft breeze rustled the ribbons tied to the backs of the chairs. I moved quickly, setting up the photo boards, laying out the name cards, checking the slideshow setup. I placed the custom party favors at each seat, mason jars filled with lavender sugar scrub for the adults, little canvas kits for the kids. At 10:30, everything was done. Perfect. The food trays were warming in the buffet line. The speaker system played Frank Sinatra's Softly Grandma's Favorite. The slideshow was cued and ready. The photographer was scheduled to arrive at 11:15, just after the guests. I took a deep breath, smoothed my dress, and sent a message to the family group chat. "Everything's ready at Willow Creek. Can't wait to see everyone soon." I sat down at the main table and waited. 11:00 a.m. Nothing. 11:05. Still nothing. I checked my phone again. No responses. They're just running late. I told myself, big families always run late. By 11:15, the photographer arrived and began snapping detail shots, decor, food, venue. After a few minutes, he hesitated. Should I wait for everyone to arrive before taking group photos? I smiled tightly. Yes, let's wait a bit longer. By 11:30, I started to feel the first pang of dread. Still no one. I called Mom. No answer. I tried Dad, then Jason, then Grace. Straight to voicemail. Ethan's phone rang twice, then stopped. I texted the group again. "Is everyone okay? Everything's set here, just waiting." At 12:03, Ethan replied, "Wait, is that today?" My heart dropped. Seconds later, Grace chimed in. "Running a bit late. Traffic is terrible." So they hadn't forgotten. I thought, that's something. Maybe they'd all show up at once, like in those cheesy rom-com scenes. Maybe I'd turn around and they'd be there, carrying coolers and folding chairs and laughter. 12:15, 12:30, nothing. Then Mom called. Her voice was light, almost cheerful. "Audrey? Honey, didn't you get our messages?" "What messages?" There was a last-minute change. Grace offered to host at her house instead. It was just easier for everyone. I looked around me, the custom place settings fluttering in the breeze. The untouched food, the empty chairs. "You're all at Grace's?" I asked, my voice shaking. "Yes, sweetie. Everyone's here. It just made more sense. She has the pool, you know, and the kids love it. We tried to let you know." I stared at my phone screen. No missed calls, no unread messages, nothing. "I've been here since 8:30. I said, "I paid for this venue. I planned everything. You all confirmed yesterday. Well, things change." "Audrey," Mom replied breezily, "but don't worry, I saved you a plate. I can bring it by later." A plate. From the party I had planned, the reunion I had funded. "Where are you again?" she asked, as if she'd forgotten. "Willow Creek," I said, voice flat. "The place I've been telling you about for 3 months." "Oh, right," she said. "Well, hang tight. I'll swing by in an hour or so." She hung up. I stood in the middle of the perfectly decorated space, surrounded by flowers, memories, food, and silence. The photographer walked up again. "Is everything okay?" he asked gently. "Should we pack up?" I nodded slowly. "You can go. I'll still pay you for the full time." Emma came out a moment later, frowning in confusion. "No one showed no one," I said. "She helped me gather everything. I offered to pay the full fee, but she refused, saying, 'You've already paid enough.' It was nearly $300 PM. When Mom finally pulled into the parking lot, her hair was slightly damp, and she was wearing a swimsuit cover-up. "There you are," she said, as if I'd been the one missing. "You should see Grace's new backyard she put in a waterfall. Just stunning." She handed me a plastic container with a few mixed leftovers. They were thrown together haphazardly cold pasta, some ribs, a lonely cupcake with the frosting half melted. "We missed you," she added, as if I hadn't been the one they left behind. Everyone understood that I was busy with her hand gestured vaguely toward the pavilion, all this. I didn't cry. Not then. Something inside me clicked, not snapped. Not shattered, but solidified. I'd always known I was the one who gave the most, but this was the day I realized they'd never even noticed. "Thanks for the leftovers," I said, placing the container in my passenger seat. "I need to get going. Aren't you coming to Grace's? Everyone's still there?" "Ethan set up the badminton net?" "No," I said simply. "I don't think I will." And with that, I got in my car and drove away. The container of leftovers sat beside me like a metaphor I didn't need to unpack. I didn't turn on the radio. I didn't answer my buzzing phone. By the time I got home, the numbness had worn off, replaced by a slow, building ache that crested into uncontrollable sobs the second I shut my front door. I collapsed onto the floor and wept, not just for the wasted money or the abandoned venue, but for every time in my life I'd let them treat me like this. That night, as I scrolled mindlessly through social media, I found Grace's latest Instagram post, "Spontaneous family reunion at our place." Sometimes the best moments are unplanned. "Had family time. Blessed." There they were, Mom arranging flowers, Dad on the grill, Ethan tossing a kid in the air, everyone smiling. No one even looked like they noticed I was missing. In one photo, I spotted the cake I'd ordered, the blue icing that read "Miller Family Reunion 2023. I hadn't even had a slice. I stared at Grace's Instagram post for a long time, not because I was surprised, not anymore, but because it was so perfectly choreographed. The way everyone smiled, the cheerful captions, the filters that made the backyard glow in late afternoon gold. It looked like a real family reunion just without me. In one picture, Dad held Ethan's youngest on his lap, the same way he used to hold me before I was old enough to start holding responsibilities instead. In another, Grace posed with Mom beside a table of appetizers. My appetizers. The ones I had paid for, ordered, picked up, and then had delivered to the wrong address. Apparently, there was no mention of me in any of the photos, no tag, no caption about how I had organized the event, nothing. It was as if I didn't exist. The comments made it worse. "Such a beautiful family. Love how close you all are. You guys really know how to do reunions, right?" I wanted to scream. Instead, I set my phone down and let the silence of my apartment fill in the cracks of my composure. I hadn't eaten anything all day, but food was the last thing on my mind. I just sat there, staring at the plastic container of cold leftovers on my kitchen counter like it was some sacred relic of betrayal. When my phone rang, I jumped. I looked at the screen. "Leah?" I answered and tried to keep my voice steady. "Hey, how's the reunion going?" she asked cheerfully. "Did they finally appreciate all the work you—" I couldn't stop the sob that burst from my throat. It cracked open something deep and raw inside me, and suddenly I was choking on tears. Ugly, gasping sobs that ripped through me like an earthquake. "Whoa, whoa, Audrey, what happened? Are you okay? What's going on?" It took several minutes to get the words out. When I finally did, Leah was dead silent on the other end. "They went to Grace's," she said finally, her voice low and controlled. "They didn't even tell me." I whispered, "Let me guess, your mom just forgot to call you. She said it was a last-minute decision, that it was more convenient for everyone." Leah let out a slow, dangerous exhale. "I'm coming over. Don't move. I'm bringing wine. She showed up 25 minutes later with 2 bottles of Merlot, a box of tissues, and a look on her face that could have melted titanium. I told her everything. From the moment I'd agreed to coordinate to the second I'd driven away from Willow Creek with the leftovers seat-buckled beside me. She didn't interrupt once, just listened, jaw clenched, eyes burning. When I finished, she stood up and started pacing. "They treat you like a service," she said finally. "Like some kind of emotional concierge. Press a few buttons, guilt, obligation, tradition, and boom. Out comes Audrey with the food, the decorations, the budget sheet, and the emotional bandwidth of a full-time therapist." I gave a weak laugh through my stuffy nose. That's a new title for me. She stopped and looked me dead in the eye. This was not just inconsiderate. "Audrey, it was calculated. They knew what they were doing. I don't think they meant she cut me off. Don't you dare. Don't you dare minimize this. Not again. You spent weeks planning something for them. You spent over $3,000 of your own money. And they moved the entire thing to someone else's house and didn't even tell you. That's not a misunderstanding. That's emotional theft." I sat back, stunned. Emotional theft. Leah grabbed my phone off the table. "Check social media. I guarantee they're acting like it was always supposed to be at Grace's." We both scrolled in silence. She was right. Post after post showed the same narrative: Grace's pool, Grace's backyard, captions about spontaneity and what really matters. Then she saw it. "Is that the cake you ordered?" she asked, zooming in. I nodded slowly. Leah's eyes narrowed. They didn't even change it. It still says Miller Family Reunion 2023. In blue, just like you planned. I didn't answer. My phone buzzed again. "Mom calling. Are you going to answer it?" Leah asked. I hesitated, then put it on speaker. "Hi, Audrey," Mom said in her usual too sweet tone. "Are you still coming over? Everyone's asking about you. No one had texted me. No one had called until now." "No, Mom," I said, "I'm not coming. I spent the entire day at the venue I paid for, alone, waiting for a family that never showed up." "Oh, don't be so dramatic," she said with a light chuckle. "Plans change. Grace's house was just more convenient." "More convenient than the place I spent thousands of dollars on that you all confirmed just yesterday?" "Well, no one asked you to spend that much," she replied, her voice tightening. "You always go overboard with these things. Not everyone has your kind of money to throw around." Leah's mouth fell open. I stared at the phone, stunned. I couldn't find the words. "So, Leah found them for me. Mrs. Miller, this is Leah. What you did today was incredibly hurtful and disrespectful. Audrey put her time, money, and heart into that reunion, and you all abandoned her. This is a family matter," Mom replied coolly. "Audrey knows we appreciate her. She doesn't need to make such a fuss over money." "That's the problem," Leah snapped. "You've taught her that respect doesn't matter as long as she's quiet and useful." I took the phone back. "This isn't about money. Mom," I said, my voice low but steady. "This is about respect, about acknowledgement, about not being the only one who's expected to give without ever receiving anything in return." There was a pause. Then she said, "You're being overly sensitive. Honestly, it's a little embarrassing how you're acting." "I have to go," I said. "Enjoy the rest of your party." I hung up. The texts started rolling in within minutes. "Dad, your mother says you're upset. Don't be like that, sweetheart. Family is family. Grace. Sorry you couldn't make it to our place. It was a last-minute switch. Hope you understand, Ethan sis. You missed a great party. LOL. Don't be so uptight." Only one message stood out, Aunt Susan Audrey. "I just heard what happened. I'm so sorry. That was incredibly thoughtless of everyone. Please call me if you want to talk." I did. She was horrified. "When your mother mentioned casually that you weren't there because you were busy, I thought you had work or something. I had no idea you planned the whole thing. It's fine, I said automatically. No, she replied, it's not fine, and you don't have to pretend it is anymore. After I ended the call, I saw a new message from Grace Hay. Any chance you can help me plan our beach trip in August? You're so good at finding deals. That was it. The final straw. I turned to Leah, shaking with something unfamiliar. It wasn't rage. It wasn't sadness. It was resolve. I'm done being the family ATM, I said. Leah raised her wine glass. Finally, what are you going to do? I stared at my laptop, still open to the reunion spreadsheet. I'm going to do what I should have done years ago. I said, I'm going to send them all an invoice. By the next morning. The numbness had worn off, replaced by something far more dangerous clarity. Not rage, not revenge, just awareness of every pattern I had ignored, every dollar I had quietly given, every emotional withdrawal they had made from a balance I never consented to open. I poured myself a cup of coffee and sat at my kitchen table, staring at my open laptop. The reunion spreadsheet was still up. Underneath the tab labeled budget, the numbers glared at me, $274.56, spent on a party no one showed up to. But that was just this event. What about last Christmas, or Dad's surprise 70th, or Grace's baby shower, the one I fully funded and wasn't even invited to speak at? How much of my life had I been financing the illusion of family? I opened a blank spreadsheet and labeled it Family Financial Contributions, Audrey Miller. And then I started to track. Every flight I'd booked to attend holidays they barely acknowledged. Every catered dish I'd ordered because someone else forgot. Every emergency payment, Ethan's car repairs, Jason's moving expenses, the time Mom asked for $500 just until Tuesday that never came back. At first, it was just numbers. But then they became stories, tiny acts of self-erasure. Silent proof of how I'd kept this family running from behind the curtain. I pulled up my budgeting software, something I used daily for clients, but never for myself when it came to family. I cross-referenced Venmo transfers, credit card statements, saved receipts. It took hours. But when I was done, the final total sat there, mocking me from the bottom right cell, $62,574.89 over 5 years. I blinked at the number. I had been saving for a condo upgrade, wondering why my retirement account wasn't growing fast enough. This was why. I wasn't just supporting my family emotionally, I was doing it financially at the expense of my future. Leah called around lunchtime. Are you okay? She asked. No, I replied, but I think I'm getting there. Did you actually calculate how much they owe you? 62 grand? I said flatly. There was a pause on her end. Jesus, I'm done. I believe you. That evening, I opened my professional invoice software. The same one I used for clients who needed budget consultations or financial planning packages, only this time, I created a new template. At the top, I wrote in bold Thompson Family Fund, internal billing statement, and then, line by line, I itemized everything for each family member. For Jason, half the venue and catering costs from Dad's 70th, the emergency payment for his mortgage during the 2021 layoff, the summer camp fees I covered for his kids, total $17,328.45 for Grace. 8 months of shared rent during her divorce, baby shower event costs, beach house reservation deposits. She never reimbursed, total $14,162.20 for Ethan, car repairs, late tuition fees, sports equipment for his kids, total $10,408.96 for Mom and Dad. Surprise party costs, holiday flights, catering, total $14,675.28. I knew I wouldn't get it all back. That wasn't the point. The point was to stop the bleeding. As I looked at the 4 PDF invoices neatly generated on my desktop, a question formed. Was I really going to do this? And then I thought of that plastic container of leftovers, the smirking Instagram post, the don't be so dramatic phone call, the way no one even noticed I was missing. Yes, I was. I added my banking information and included a short message in each email. Subject: reunion costs, Huslas future family contributions body high. Name. Please see attached your invoice for your share of the 2023 Miller family reunion, as well as past unreimbursed expenses related to shared family events over the last 5 years. Going forward, all joint expenses will be tracked and divided equally among adult members. This is not about money, it's about respect, fairness, and boundaries. Thanks. Audrey. I scheduled the emails to send the next morning at 9:00 a.m. Then I turned off my phone, placed it face down, and took the deepest breath of my adult life. At 9:03 the next morning, my phone exploded. 20 missed calls within the first 10 minutes, notifications stacked up like dominoes, voicemails, texts, even Facebook messages. Grace had tried to video call me. Ethan sent a series of voice notes that alternated between laughing and swearing. I didn't respond. Instead, I brewed another cup of coffee, opened my laptop, and created a new checking account titled Thompson Family Fund. If they were going to treat me like a CFO, then I'd start acting like one. At 10:00 a.m., I called Aunt Susan. I had already decided she deserved to hear it from me directly. I sent them invoices. I told her. There was a pause. Then she burst out laughing. "You're kidding!" "I'm not. And I'm done letting them pretend I'm some kind of silent sponsor." "You're brave," she said. "And probably about to be labeled the difficult one. I've been called worse. You know I support you." "Right, I do," I said, and for once, I truly believed it. The rest of the day was quiet. Too quiet. No one else called after the morning storm. The group chat was silent. I imagined behind closed doors, frantic calls were happening, alliances being formed. That evening, I received my first response. It wasn't from Grace, or Jason, or Mom. It was from Aunt Susan. A notification from my bank flashed across my phone. Deposit received 546.18 memo reunion expenses. Sorry this happened to you. I stared at the screen until my vision blurred. It wasn't the money that got me. It was the acknowledgement. She had seen me. That night, I pulled out a fresh notebook and wrote 3 words across the first page. Boundaries, accountability, peace. Then I added a 4th word beneath them. Finally, the next morning, I woke to 27 missed calls and 43 unread text messages. For once, I didn't feel panicked. I didn't feel obligated to reply, to soothe, to explain. I just poured myself a coffee, opened the curtains, and let the sunlight hit my face. Then I sat down and began reading. Mom's voicemail was first. Her tone was sharp, brittle. "Audrey Elizabeth Miller, what is the meaning of this invoice nonsense? Call me immediately." Dad's was more puzzled than angry. "Your mother's upset. We don't understand what's going on. Just give us a call, sweetheart." Grace left 3 voicemails, each more heated than the last. An invoice. "Are you serious? This is completely inappropriate. Audrey, you need to fix this. It's upsetting Mom's blood pressure." Ethan's voicemail was a string of chuckles. "Okay. Wow, you really went for it. Huh, this is hilarious. Good one. Sis." Then the texts. They ranged from dismissive "family doesn't charge family" to guilt-laced "you know how tight things are right now," to outright deflective "you never said you expected repayment." Not a single person addressed the actual issue. No one apologized. No one said, "We're sorry for abandoning you at the reunion. I decided to start with the hardest conversation first, Mom." She picked up on the first ring. "What is wrong with you?" she snapped. "Sending out invoices to your own family? What are people going to think? I'm assuming you got yours?" "Of course I got it. Your father nearly choked on his coffee." "Is this a joke?" "No," I said calmly. "It's a boundary. You don't invoice your own parents." "Audrey, that's not how families work." "Apparently, families also don't show up to reunions they agreed to, which one member planned and paid for, without even a phone call. You're still upset about that. You're still pretending it wasn't a betrayal. There was a silence. Then, defensive indignation. No one asked you to spend that much money. I had expected that. Actually, you all did. Repeatedly, through silence, expectation, and guilt. Every time I mentioned splitting costs, you ignored me. Every time I said I couldn't afford something, you changed the subject or said I was being dramatic. You always made more than everyone, she said quickly. You were the responsible one. You didn't need help. Being capable doesn't mean I deserve to be used. Her tone cooled. So what? You're going to shame us now? Humiliate your whole family over money? This isn't about money, I said firmly. It's about respect. Mom scoffed. You're being ridiculous. And petty. Then you shouldn't have a problem paying the invoice. Silence. We'll talk later, she said. I need to speak with your father. That's fine. My account details are included. Next up, Dad. He answered with a long sigh. Your mother's very upset. I gathered. She feels like you're attacking the family. I'm not attacking anyone. I'm setting terms. For the first time, he didn't speak for a moment. I didn't know you felt this way. I've tried to tell you. Many times. I've sent messages asking for help, asked to share costs. No one listened. Maybe we didn't want to believe it, he said quietly. That doesn't make it less real. I'll talk to your mother. Okay. Take your time. The invoice is due by the 15th. Grace called next. I answered. You're insane, she said without preamble. You're seriously charging me $17,000? Yes. Over 5 years. I itemized it. Itemized, she said, almost laughing. You're insane and obsessive. Your portion includes 8 months of rent I covered, the beach rental you bailed on, and the summer camp tuition for your twins. I thought you wanted to help. I did, because I thought helping meant something to you. But apparently, all it meant was more taking. I'm not paying this, she snapped. That's your choice. But I won't be participating in any family events unless costs are shared equally from now on. That includes the beach trip you asked me to help plan last week. I'll plan it myself. Great. Let me know how it goes. She hung up without another word. Then he video called me from his living room, holding a beer. So, CFO Audrey, got your invoice. Very official. I treat all accounts professionally, I replied. I'm not paying $10,000, he said with a grin. Sorry. You owe that much. I don't have that much. My car just broke down. Plus, the kids' soccer gear. You had money for that $700 console last month? His face twitched. You stalking me now? No, you posted it online. He rubbed his face. Look, I'm not gonna fight with you. This feels harsh. We're family. We mess up. You're just supposed to deal with it. I've been dealing with it for over a decade. This is me stopping. He went quiet for a while, then said, You're serious? Huh, yes. Damn. He didn't hang up. He just stared at me, suddenly unsure what to do with a version of me he couldn't manipulate. By evening, the group chat lit up. Mom, we're calling a family meeting tomorrow night, 6:00 p.m. Be at our house. I replied I'll be there. And I'll bring everyone's invoices in print. The next day, I arrived 5 minutes early. The living room had been arranged like a courtroom chairs facing one direction. One seat pulled slightly apart, the one for me. Mom stood by the fireplace, arms crossed. Jason and Grace sat together on the couch, silent. Ethan slouched by the window. Dad poured himself a scotch. Let's get this over with, Mom said. I took out the folder I'd prepared, one for each person. Detailed, factual, neat and neutral. I handed them out one by one. Grace's mouth fell open as she read her total again. You're seriously tallying summer camp fees. You asked me to cover it because your childcare fell through. I have the texts. This is insane. No, Aunt Susan said from behind me. I hadn't even noticed she was there. What's insane is how much Audrey has done for this family without acknowledgement. Everyone turned. I paid my invoice, she added, folding her arms. I wasn't even part of the reunion, but I saw what happened. And I refuse to sit here and pretend this is about anything other than accountability. Silence fell like a hammer. Dad cleared his throat. She's right. He turned to me. Audrey, I reviewed the expenses. I was shocked. I didn't realize. He paused. I'm sorry. Mom looked at him sharply. I'll pay my share, he added, and I'll help coordinate Thanksgiving this year. Grace opened her mouth, then closed it again. Ethan scratched his head. I can't pay the whole thing right now, but maybe monthly. Like $100 a week, my jaw almost dropped. That would be fine. I said softly. Grace, finally, spoke again. I still think the invoices are extreme, but I get it now. I didn't realize it was that much. Mom was the last to speak. You've embarrassed this family. No, I said, meeting her eyes. You embarrassed yourselves when you left me alone at the reunion I paid for. She didn't respond, but she didn't argue either. That night, I left with more than a promise of repayment. I left with something far rarer in our family, the beginning of accountability. In the days that followed, things shifted. The group chat slowed, then rebooted this time. With contribution charts, for the first time in years, I wasn't the one expected to plan everything. Jason texted privately to say he'd paid me through Zelle. Ethan sent his first $100 installment. Dad called to ask if I'd help him split costs for Christmas fairly. Even Grace, who once refused to say the word budget, sent her full amount. No message attached. But I saw her name on the transfer, and it said enough. Mom was the last to pay. 2 weeks later, no apology, no memo, just a deposit with the exact invoice total. And for now, that was enough. Weeks passed. The dust from Invoice Gate, as Ethan jokingly called it, began to settle. I didn't forget, and I certainly didn't forgive all of it. But something subtle shifted in the air between us, less assumption, more pause. My family had learned, even if just a little, that I wasn't going to carry the load alone anymore. The biggest change wasn't in them, though. It was in me. I no longer flinched when my phone buzzed with the family group chat. I didn't rush to volunteer when Jason casually asked, "Who wants to handle Thanksgiving this year?" I waited. And when no one responded for hours, Grace finally spoke up. "I'll coordinate this time. We can split tasks and costs fairly." I nearly dropped my phone. I replied simply, "Thanks. Let me know what you need from me." And that was it. No more spreadsheets. No more overfunctioning. No more pulling my emotional worth from how well I could organize other people's chaos. Leah called me later that night. "So, you finally broke the family curse. I think I just made them uncomfortable enough to look in a mirror." Still, it took guts. It took $62,000 and a ruined reunion. She laughed. Well, expensive therapy, but effective. I thought a lot about that reunion afterward, how I decorated every inch of that garden with hope, and how not a single one of them showed up. But then I realized that day wasn't a failure. It was a turning point, because for the first time in my life, I didn't chase them afterward. I didn't grovel. I didn't organize a redo. I just stood still and let the consequences land where they belonged. And from the silence, respect began to grow. Even Ethan started texting me more often, not asking for things, but just talking. Took my kid to soccer. Thought of you. Found an old photo of us building a Lego castle. We were so weird. Your Spotify playlist recs still slap. By the way, one night he called out of the blue. "You free?" he asked. "Depends. I want to take you to dinner." "My treat." I hesitated. Not with an ulterior motive, he added quickly. Just, I've been thinking a lot about what you said. I was a selfish little jerk. I want to make up for it. I smiled. Okay, dinner sounds good. We met at a quiet restaurant near my condo. He showed up early, held the door, didn't look at his phone once. Over steak frites and creme brulee? He told me something that stuck with me. You always made it look easy. You know, he said, being the one who had it all together. I thought, maybe you didn't need help. I did, I said softly. I just stopped asking after no one listened. I'm sorry, he said, and he meant it. That night, we walked to my car together. As we stood in the parking lot under flickering lamplight, he gave me a quick hug. Next time there's a family thing, he said, I want to help. And strangely, I believed him. The next family event was Thanksgiving. Grace planned it down to the napkins. She sent out a shared spreadsheet with budgets, task assignments, and sign-up slots for each dish. I stared at the email in disbelief. Leah, when I showed her, clutched her chest like she was witnessing a miracle. It's happening, she whispered. You've systemized them. At Thanksgiving dinner, I didn't arrive early. I showed up right on time with one homemade pie and a bottle of wine. That was my assignment. No tables to set, no meals to coordinate, no anxiety about whether the vegan cousin got her gluten-free option. As I walked in, Mom greeted me with a tight smile and a nod. Dad gave me a side hug and whispered, "Thanks for the wake-up call." Even Jason handed me a plate and said, "You want white meat or dark?" The food was delicious. The conversations were lighter. I wasn't walking on eggshells, and no one expected me to stay after and clean everything alone. At the end of the night, Grace stood in the middle of the kitchen and clinked her wine glass. Before everyone goes, she said, I just want to thank Audrey. I froze. She looked at me, eyes glassy but sincere. I know we haven't always treated you fairly, and I know I haven't always said it, but we do see you, and we're trying to do better. So, thank you for showing us how. For a moment, the room was quiet. Then Ethan raised his glass and said, To Audrey CFO, MVP, and the reason we don't suck quite as much anymore. Everyone laughed, including me. That night, as I drove home under the rustling trees of late autumn, I thought about the girl I used to be, the one who would have cleaned up the whole house just to earn a thank you, the one who would have paid for everything and still gone home feeling like she hadn't done enough. She was gone now. And the woman behind the wheel. She finally knew her worth, and that it was never something her family got to determine. A month after Thanksgiving, I hosted my first gathering again. Not a reunion, not a party for the whole Miller clan, just a dinner, small, simple, intimate, a few close friends. Leah, of course, and 2 cousins I'd reconnected with after they heard about the invoice situation and called to say they admired me for standing up. I cooked one of Grandma Eleanor's old recipes, chicken with rosemary and lemon. It was the one she made on quiet Sunday evenings. After the noise of the world had faded and it was just about food and comfort. Not performance, not perfection, just connection. As I set the table 6 plates, mismatched napkins, thrifted wine glasses, I realized something. This table felt more like home than any family event I'd hosted in years. It wasn't about bloodlines or obligations. It was about choice. I chose who sat here now. I chose who got my time, my effort, my love. And for the first time, I wasn't trying to earn my place at someone else's table. I was making my own. Midway through dinner, Leah raised her glass. To Audrey, she said, who finally started treating herself the way she always treated everyone else. Everyone clinked glasses. I laughed and rolled my eyes, but a lump formed in my throat anyway. Because she was right. I used to treat my family like royalty, while treating myself like a servant. No more. After dessert, We sat around the living room, shoes kicked off, jackets draped over chairs, music playing low. The air was soft and warm, like the way Grandma's house used to feel before the years made everything complicated. When the guests had gone and I was left with quiet, I took a moment. I looked around at the empty plates and the flickering candles and thought, this is enough. I didn't need grand gestures. I didn't need my mother's approval or my siblings' praise. I didn't need anyone to clap when I gave. I just needed peace. And I'd earned it. The next day, Mom texted me a photo of the Christmas wreath she'd made for her front door. Then she added, thinking about scaling back this year. We'll all pitch in. Would love your help, but only if you want to. It wasn't a perfect apology, but it was a shift. I responded. Happy to help with one dish. Just let me know which. For once. I didn't feel guilt for doing the bare minimum. I felt balanced. Grace also messaged. A real message this time, not a demand disguised as flattery. Hey, I've been thinking about what you said, about invisible labor. I'm reading this book on emotional load. It's eye-opening. I'm sorry I didn't get it before. I replied with a simple, thanks for telling me. I appreciate it. Then I closed my phone and took a walk. The streets were lined with twinkle lights. The world was softening for winter. I walked past houses glowing with warmth inside families. Yes, but also friends, couples, individuals, all trying their best to create something meaningful. And I realized something I hadn't admitted to myself, yet I had spent most of my life trying to be chosen. By my parents, by my siblings, by a family that liked me best when I was convenient, useful, and quiet. But now, I was choosing myself. That didn't mean I had to cut them off. It didn't mean we'd never share a meal again. It just meant the rules had changed. The roles had shifted. I was no longer the fixer, the funder, the unthanked organizer of everyone else's happiness. I was just Audrey, and that was enough. On Christmas morning, I visited my parents' house. I brought one pie, one gift for each person. No spreadsheet, no itinerary, no guilt, just presents. They didn't treat me like a martyr or a servant. They didn't joke about me going overboard again. In fact, Jason actually handed me a small wrapped box with a card that read, "For all the years you showed up, sorry it took us so long to do the same." Inside was a silver charm bracelet with a tiny notebook, a tiny pie, and a tiny sunflower. I didn't cry then, but I did later. Later, when I was home again and holding the bracelet in my hand. I sat on the couch with a cup of cocoa and thought, maybe we can't rewrite our family of origin, but we can redraw the map, set the borders, plant the signs that say, this far, no further. And if we're lucky, if they love us enough, they'll learn to walk those new paths. And if not, we build our own table, set our own places, and fill the room with people who understand that giving is a gift, not a job. That night, before bed, I opened my notebook and wrote 3 lines I am allowed to rest. I am not responsible for holding everything together. I am no longer afraid to be seen without a to-do list in my hand. Then I turned off the light, curled under my blanket, and fell asleep smiling, not because they'd changed, but because I had